Alrighty, so we went over the interface. We talked a little bit about, we also went over how to set up the composition. And now we're going to just start to see how we can start to animate text in different shapes. And we're going to start off slow, and I'm just going to start to give you guys some stuff to work on, to kind of mess around with. And we also need to talk about how compositions work and play with each other. Okay. So I have comp 1. This is, and it's showing up down here. And this empty space where it has source name and all this stuff is essentially showing different things that I can turn off and on for when I do actually have content down there. This is also where we would bring in our sound file that we're setting up to, right? Anytime I want to bring in content, I would just right-click in the composition window or in the content, the project window, and say I want to import. And here's where I can import different things, right? I could import a file, and that would be images. That would be Illustrator files, either AI or SVG. Also, I can bring in Illustrator shapes and use them as mask as well to mask out the shape of something I've already brought in. Multiple files from a library. If I was working in Premiere and made a project in there and now is bringing that project in here to do more stuff. I'm going to just drop down to placeholder and solid. So placeholder is kind of interesting because it's actually pretty useful. You could be working on a project and let's say somebody is, you're working on a project, but you're waiting for a logo from them. You don't want to wait until they finish the logo. You still need to do what you need to do. So you put in a placeholder. So you start animating to that with this placeholder, and then once they give you that logo, you just right-click and swap it out. And you've already done your work. You just drop in the logo that they have. So you're not stunted where you have to wait. And then a solid is just a shape. Question?
So placeholder just replaces like what?
No, you replace the placeholder. A placeholder is there until you get the actual content or footage.
Oh, okay.
So if you didn't have it already, like you're waiting for a video or you're waiting for an illustration or something like that, you don't want to wait to start doing what you have to do for the person to give you that file. So you start working everything else and you just put a placeholder that's going to be like, oh, this is where the logo is going to be. And then once they give you the logo, you just swap it out. But you already have the other content completed.
Oh, so what other content would that be?
Images, videos, anything like that.
Oh, then it's just that's the place, and then you just put something in there.
Yep. And then the solid is just a sheet of color that you can use, and you can also use it with mask to make shapes. We'll go over that in a little bit.
I was just curious. Could you use the 3D modeling, 3D Maya, and then when you put the scene, and then you could just import it into this?
You can.
And then into After Effects, and then to make it look better, like don't they do that kind of thing?
I wouldn't say look better. It just depends on. So the question is, can you bring in stuff from Maya into After Effects? Yes, you can bring in 3D objects. Typically, it's somewhat limited. Usually they will render out stuff unless it's very simple shapes, simple textures and stuff, or shaders. Because After Effects is awesome at compositing, but it is not a premium 3D renderer. So I would render out an image sequence with the background dropped out, but you can bring in like, oh, I have shapes and it's going to be flying around, or different simple objects, and set up lights and animate that inside of After Effects or tweak it and then render it out of there. But for my style and what I do, I just have never, I don't really do it that way, because usually people do that when they are using very simple shapes or simple shaders. So so here we go. So we've got that, and we got our timeline. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up top and I'm going to choose my text tool, the horizontal type. So I click on that, and then all the way at the bottom right where it has my paragraph, because I'm showing that because I turned it on over here. This little guy looks like a folder that has two arrows, one going left, one going right. So I clicked on that one, and it turned on my paragraph. If I just still don't see it, you can go to Window and just turn on paragraph right here. And then it'll pop up. And I'm just going to center it so that the anchor point or pivot point, depending on which program you're in, will be in the center. So that when I click in the middle, I have this cursor spot, and I'm just going to type in hello. So I did uppercase H, lowercase l, and over here, because it's looking at my previous settings, you could see I could shut that to upper small caps or lowercase. So however I want to put it, but I've just typed it in. This is also in my character sheet is where I would choose what the font is, if it's bold, what size, what color, or is it just outlines. All that is inside of here.
Where's the paragraph or something out there?
Bottom right. If you don't have it showing, go to Window and choose Paragraph, and you'll see the window pop up.
Oh, it's just the coloring in the fonts.
Yeah, well, it's basically it's word attributes, text attributes. So I've got it in the middle. I've got hello. And now that I've got that typed in, I'm going to click on the arrow, and you could see that this is now, with the arrow, I can click and move this around if I want to. Okay. You can scale it this way, though I encourage you not to scale it by grabbing, just like in Illustrator. It's not a great idea to grab fonts and just scale them and squeeze them like oh, let me grab one of these points and scale it and stretch it like this. You typically want to go through the text options to change fonts, because otherwise you distort them from their original shape. And most of the time you actually don't want to do that. You'll also notice my hello is not humongous, okay? I have a lot of negative space around that. So let's go over some ways of actually animating this. So first, if we go I'm in comp 1, we can see that at the bottom left. And you see now, let me pull this up a little bit. In my timeline, I've got hello in there, screen name, and there's a T next to it. Let me see if I can boost that up a little bit. You see there's a T next to it showing it's a text layer. Over to the left, I could shut its visibility off and on. If it were a video with sound, I could turn it off and on. I can make it solo, which is basically an isolate, so it hides everything but that, which really for now doesn't make sense because it's the only thing in there. And I could lock the layer so I don't accidentally do things to it, moving it, changing its properties, setting keys, stuff like that. Now, one important thing, it'd be a good idea if all of you just made one text, like just right now, so I could show you a couple of things. Choose the text tool, click in the center, type in hello or your name or something to that effect. I'm just going to do hello. Let's say we're going to do a sentence that's like, hello, my name is, for first name, last name.
Where's the text properties? 'Cause I'm a tiny little kind of
If you don't, so the text properties should be off to the right. If you don't see it, go to Window, turn on Character. And then if you, just like in any Word editing program, if you double click on it or select all of it, you can go in and then change. Like right now, I'm using Baskerville, and my font size is 126 pixels. So I give you guys a second to type that in. Now, if you can't see it, it means, look at this right here, it means your color is set to white. So if I double click on in the character menu to the right of what font it is, I pull up a color menu and then I can change it to whatever color I want. I have it set to black. Or you could just choose, you see there's these little, I could set it automatically to black or white with these little, there's a black and white icon because those are the most typical ones. And I could just click on that to change it. Okay. So everybody cool? You got that? Questions?
Not quite. I'm trying to, yeah, the word's not coming out. The text is not coming up. I'm typing, but it's not showing up. So I'm struggling with that.
Look at your color.
Nope. There's nothing there.
But do you see it right here? Look at the projector.
Right, I see it there, but it's not showing up on my.
So go to Window, choose Character.
Okay, all right.
Do you see it now?
So we check that.
Now do you see it?
No.
Hold on one sec. Let me pause this. Alrighty, so let me show you a couple of things. So first, let me show you some of the properties of the text that we just created, right? So I've got it, it's in there. And if I go to my layer that says hello at the bottom left, you'll see a little arrow that I want to click on, and it pulls down a drop-down menu that shows text and transform. So I go to the layer, I click a little arrow, in this case it's pointing to the red line, which is the color code for this layer, and I open it, and you see it drops down transform and text. And when I do that, it gives me all these different options and the properties I could change. The anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity, and just by clicking these, you see I can fade things off and on. I can change their scale. You know, I could change their position, so when there's two values, and then under text, we have some different information like the fill and the stroke, just different options inside of here. But what I'm going to show you, let me close these up. I just wanted to show you these because particularly under transform, we'll go over how to animate this stuff here in a second. But I want to show you some of the preset animations that will make your life a little bit easier and how you could start to apply them. Okay? But this is where you would all start to see these properties and different effects that we would apply. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to where it says Window, and I'm going to turn on Effects and Presets. So go up to Window, turn on Effects and Presets, and now you'll see it show up over here. There's also another one we'll be going over later under Animation, where we have different options inside of here that we can use. But for right now, we're going to stick to these because these are kind of fun. Okay, and they're quick. So I've got my hello in here, and I want that to animate. So we're in Effects and Presets. And as I scroll through these, you'll see there's like, oh, 3D channel, audio, blur and sharpen. They're categorized. But if you scroll down, there's, where is it? Hold on, where are you? Right at the top, actually, animation presets. If I open that up, I've got a bunch of animation presets. Backgrounds, behaviors, transforms, dissolves, text. So I'm inside of animation presets. I open that up, and I'm going to open up the text preset. Okay. So can you guys see that? Did you guys find where that is?
I can't see it. Okay.
Raise your hand if you're having a problem finding it. You guys good? Okay. So, you see all these little folders have subfolders. And I'm going to open up the one called Animate In. And what that basically means is, how do you want the text to come in? Right? Animate In. Yep, Effects and Presets. Then there's a folder called Animation Presets all the way at the top. Then you go into the text folder in there. And then inside of that folder, Animate In. So, center spiral, character shuffle in. Let's do center spiral. That's the first one. So here's how I apply it. I drag center spiral onto the layer of hello. Just drag it onto where it says hello at the bottom left, under screen source name. So now if I just scrub through, and to scrub through, I go down to the bottom and I grab this little blue, looks like an upside down house, and I click on it and drag to the left, and look what it did. So it fades in and spirals in. That was the effect I just added. If I want to test that, I could hit the space bar and it's showing me the speed. See that? Space bar again to stop. Raise your hand if that didn't work or you need help. Cool.
There's a lot of folders that you have to go through here.
Oh yeah, that's all these programs. But that's how I would add it. Okay. Now,
Do you have to go through and do that for every word that you put in there, or can you just groups of words? So that-
it depends. So the question is, do you have to do that for every word? It depends. It depends on how I have them transitioning. If every word I bring in has a different transition, then yes. If it's a whole sentence, not necessarily. I can then animate by character or by word, so that either the whole word sweeps in or just letter by letter of the same type of animation. This is why you have to plan ahead. So let's take a step back, okay? So I'm going to Control Z to undo that, to get rid of it. Now if I scrub, it's gone. Okay? So it's like, yeah, you know what? I want to do something first. Right? So everybody, I know it's kind of weird. Control Z to take off whatever you had. So now if I scrub, you see it's no longer animated. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to build out that first sentence word by word. Okay? Everybody cool? Good. So, I've got the word hello. I select that layer. No longer has the animation on it. And I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it. So now in my timeline, I should have hello and hello 2. Everybody got that? Huh? Copy, and then you have to paste it. Duplicate, copies, and paste it in the exact same spot. Allergies. So we're good?
Yeah, we're good.
So now I'm going to double click on Hello 2 in the layer. So it highlights it, and I'm going to type in my. Okay. So now I have two fonts, or two layers of text on top of each other. That's okay. Excuse me. So I have hello, my. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to duplicate my. Now I have my 2. I'm going to double click that.
So on the hello 2, are we actually taking off that 2 and making it a my?
Yes. We're basically retyping it when we double click. And what we're doing is we're stacking all of these things up on top of each other. Now I'm going to say name. So if I go all the way to the left, you see I have these little eyes that I can hide layers with. So the bottom one, hello, I could turn that on. Turn that off, turn the second one on. My name. They're just all on top of each other. So now I'll hide my name and go back to hello. So why did I do that? I know that this is the first part of my animation. This is going to be one part, part 1. And I wanted all the fonts in there. If I duplicated it with the animation, then every single one of them would also have that same animation on it. And maybe I want them to be a little bit different. Okay? If I didn't, then I could duplicate it with the animation on, and then just go and offset them later. But for right now, I want to have different animations on these. So I've hidden my name and layers, and I just have hello, and now I'm gonna go back and open up my presets again. And I want that first one, yes, center spiral, put it back on hello. See? Now my only problem is it's taking like 3 seconds to say hello. That's way too long. So 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. Hello. So unless you're going to plan on talking that slowly, you know, which you won't have, yeah, you'll have very few words during a 10-second blurb. We want to speed that up. So the way I speed it up is I'm going to go to my hello layer, open the menu down below it, the properties, and we see spiral and fade in. And if we go to the right, we see these little dots in the timeline, and that's showing where my keyframes are. And I want to change those. So what I'm going to do is open up, fade in, and spiral. And we could see, the rotation and the opacity. Now these are the keyframes, these little diamonds that are here. Okay. So what we could see, let me zoom in a little bit, down here is that there's a starting keyframe and an ending keyframe, a starting keyframe and an ending keyframe of these. And we want to tighten that up. So on the opacity, and if I put my cursor over it, you see it's like, oh yeah, takes a whole second and for it to transition. I'm going to select that and move it inward, and then grab the spiral and move that inward as well. And now I test it to see if that's much faster. Yeah, it's better. Could maybe be a little tighter. So that's where, if you look all the way at the bottom, there's zoom in to frame. It's this little slider, looks like between a tiny little mountain and a big mountain. And if I zoom in, I can actually see a lot more, and I could tighten this up more. So I zoomed in. So that's better. If I look at it now, look how fast it plays now. Maybe we'll tighten this one up, the spiral, a little bit faster too. Yeah, I like that. Sweet. So I've got my first part of my animation in, just getting that one little guy, and I tighten it up so it's faster, because when I'm hitting play, if I'm going hello, it's going to be a very long narrative, right? And now that I've got that working right, is a good time to do a save. So I'm going to go File, Save, and now is a good time to call this one, let's say, I'm just going to call this one Kin Demo Part 1. And the reason I do that is because every time I got something right, I want to save. Because if it crashes, my machine blue screens, power goes out, I don't have to start from scratch. That's a good question. Ideally, yes, you'd have a project folder that you would make, and you keep all your assets in subfolders of that project folder. You don't want everything spread out. So just like when you're in Maya, it's a good idea to say, oh, I have a folder called Kinetic Typography. Inside that folder, I have a folder for, if I was going to use illustrations or images, I'd put them in there. My sound file, I could have a folder called Sounds. I'd put it in there. If I had video, I'd have a video folder inside of it, and I'd put my videos in there. And that way, if I go from machine to machine or whatever, it's self-contained and I don't forget anything. Problem with if you don't do that and you start having things, oh, this is on my desktop, this is in the documents folder, this is in the, the download folder, then if you move that file to another computer or something happens, you have a lot of files missing. So you want to keep it organized, have everything kind of set up that way. Make sense? Yeah, sure. So, so we got that. We sped up hello. We've got that down. And now, I'll show you a little trick. Now I want to animate hello to move out of the way so it'll expose my. Okay? So I can close all those little options on hello. And once I close it, now watch this. Here's a shortcut for you. I press P for position. And then instead of showing me that long list of attributes, it's only going to show me position. If I don't remember it or whatever, usually it's the first letter on most of them. But if I don't remember it, I can always just open it up and go down and then go through there. But if I want it, when you start having a bunch of layers, this is going to be one of those things that drives you a little bit nuts. So just hitting P shows position. If I wanted it position and scale, I would hold down Shift S, and then that would also show. Now it's showing position and scale. Shift S again, and then now it's hidden. So I've got it down, and it's animated whoosh like this. And now I want it to move over afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the time to the point where it stops right there. And go to position, and you see that little stopwatch icon right next to it? That's how you set your first key, and you basically say, hey, I want to start setting keys on this. You don't do it for every key. You do it for the first one. So I click on that once, and now what you'll notice is all the way to the left, there's this little dot, and that means that I'm on a keyframe, which is to the left. So I've set it so that it's now locked in that position from 0 to wherever I positioned it. In my case, like 11 11ths of a second right there. Boop. So if I go here, whoosh, cool. And now let's say I'm going to go a few frames over, like right about here. The cool thing is, if it's wrong, I can move these later. I'm just setting them down. And now I'm going to tell it to move over. So I turn on my, so I could see it, and now I position this just by left mouse clicking and dragging on the first value to move it over to expose my. Just like that. And we'll see it draws this little animation curve line, which is straight, because I just moved it in one direction. So if I rewind and hit play, we see this. And I say I like that, but I wanted to hello to hang there a little longer. So I'm just going to drag select both these keyframes and just move them over so that hello has a chance to stay there for a second. And now if I test it and hit spacebar, hello, my name, and then go there. Hold on. Let me pause and I'll go around and see who needs help. Resume. I hit play. Hello. Boom. Then it goes my. Now I go to the point where I want my to actually happen. And then I select the my layer. And now tell it what animation I want it to actually have. So this could be fly in from the bottom. Let's try that. And I'm on the point in the timeline where I want it to happen. And I just drop it right in there. Right? So I hit space. Hello. Now, you see it's coming in, but it's coming in really slow. So once again, and I want to adjust the opacity so you don't see it that way. So I go into my, under text, and I look at, under animator 1, it's setting up that position. Right? So as I go through, and you can see my points down here, it's position under range selector under animator 1. So there's these sub levels, but I could see where the keyframe is. It's here, here, and I want to tighten that up a lot. So I want to grab that ending keyframe, which is, let's see, we open up position, there it is. Grab that ending keyframe, and I'm going to really tighten that up. There, that's better. Maybe I'll move that up a little bit closer. Hello, my name. There we go, I like that. So watch this. So I'm here. Hello. And I just want to tighten those up. Oops. Yeah, that's looking good. Now, one thing I don't like about it is it starts on the screen. So either I want it to fade in, or I want to pull it off the screen on that first keyframe. Let's do a fade in. So let's go to the first frame where it says start. And now I'm going to scroll down in my let's find, I'm going to close you and then reopen you. And what we're looking for is an opacity, which should be under transform, and there it is there. The quick way of getting to that, let me close up I select the frame. And alright, this is weird. I press T for opacity, and it'll show it. So even though it's opacity, you press T, and you can think of T as transparency, even though opacity is showing it. So there's my opacity. And what I want to do is I want to key. Let's say, bam. I could either key it that it is set the key with the little stopwatch and turn the opacity off to 0. And then when I actually move forward, I could start setting keys to make it 100% so that we have something like this. So that's okay. If I don't like it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just select the opacity keys, or I'll just uncheck it, turn off the stopwatch, which gets rid of any keyframes I had on it. And then if I didn't like that, then now I'll just go back in under text, animator, position, and then on that first keyframe, I'll just line it up so I'm on the first keyframe. Sorry, this Zoom is driving me a little batty, so I'm going to have to turn that off for a sec. Go to the first keyframe of it. And then tell it that the position is going to be off from there. So I could just move this totally off screen. There we go. I like that better, actually.
So is that a thing that you're going to drop and drag, or? Are you dropping and dragging it? What are you?
I'm getting it so that the starting position is not on the screen. It's off screen. So that when I play it now, watch what happens. See? And I'll play it again. Eyes up front so you guys can see it. Play. See? Now, the cool part of that is if I say, wow, you know what? I want name to do the same thing. I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to turn name on now. And on hello and my, I'm going to press P. Turn on the position for my, because remember, the position we were editing was on the effect on my. It wasn't on the actual text itself. Okay? So now I have both of these, and I'm going to set a key for hello just by clicking. Now I'll turn this back on just so you can see. This little dot right here, when it's blue, you're on a keyframe. When it's white or empty, it means you can set a keyframe. I want to set a keyframe here as my starting position, so that when I look at this and I go, okay, this is going like zoop, zoop. And now let's say I'm going to take both those position keyframes and move them over to here. And now, right just a few frames later, we are going to move both of them over like this. Okay. So I have them both selected. That's why I can move them. And you see it's set a key because they already have a keyframe set. So now any manipulation I do is automatically going to set another key. So let's rewind and hit play. Hello, my name. And if I love, like, wow, I really like how the my is working, I'm going to copy the effect I have on my and paste it onto name. So I don't have to go through that whole thing. I just copy one keys of an effect from one and paste it on the other. So that means I have to select my. Under text. Animator. go. And it's these keyframes. So if I try just copying them as they are, like I could just literally select those keyframes and copy them, and then select name, and paste. You notice it doesn't do this. It doesn't work properly. It's showing it's doing something, but it's not doing it properly. Let me Z out of that. And that's because I never put the original effect on it for it to properly put those keyframes in the right place. So on name, I'm just going to use the same one, fly in from the bottom, drop that on the name. And now, let's see. Zoom out a bit. Those are them, and instead, I'm just going to paste, oops, get rid of the existing keyframes. Back up a bit to where I want it to happen, and now paste them in. Let's see if that works. There it is. So I needed it to be in there and I'll just adjust that one initial keyframe again, because whatever reason it just doesn't want to get that one, so that's okay. Let me close this so I can actually see it. So I do the exact same thing on that starting keyframe, just change. Oh, because I didn't copy the position keys, that's why. So it's only copying the keyframes I had selected. But that's okay. I'll just change the beginning part of that. Pull that off screen. And now hit play. And see what it does. Hello, my name. There we go. See that? Play again. Hello, my name. Make it a little longer because it's a bigger name. Nice. Now is a good time to do a save as. And I will call this one Kin Demo Part 2. So every time I do something major, I like to save it because, once again, I like to be able to go back. I also know that things will crash. So you don't want to like mess yourself up and be in a situation where, oh man, I got to do that over again. Not that that's not the best way of learning, but it's also a little bit painstaking when it happens. So I'm just going to go back and move these guys over just a wee bit so that there's more even space between all three. Excellent. So that is the first part of my composition, that one piece. Okay? Any questions on that? Yes.
Oh, I'm just curious. I was just asking you for help that, when you bring it down and then it comes up like that kind of thing. Do you have to set the key in the beginning if that was the case for the line?
When you start setting keys, you always want to think about setting the initial key of where you want things to start from or wherever, right?
Because the my, yeah. It's just because the my was at the bottom, so I thought, it was at the beginning. It was down below.
I just changed that first. I didn't even key that. I just changed where the starting position was. And then that's fine. But yep. Okay. So used diff. So what we covered with that, using text, make multiple layers of all your text that you're going to use for this one segment. I get each individual one working right the way I want it. Right? And I only add what I need. I still have a lot of negative space. I'm not trying to fill up the entire area. And then I go through and I do my next set that's going to go with this. Now, in the original one that I had, this stuff then shrinks a little, rotates so it's vertical. And then I start having text drop alongside of it with a logo. Okay? This is where we start getting into our different compositions, right? So if I have this, and I'm going to show you how this works. This is comp 1. I'm going to make a new composition. Same settings, but I'm going to call this new composition let's say comp, let's call this one final. This is where I'm going to put all those other comps into and line them up. Okay, so now comp 1 I can change and rename it to part 1. Part 1 is going to go into final, and then I'm going to make a new comp called part 2. So I'm grouping these together. If I try to have like 500 things all in the same composition and working together, you're going to go mad. You have to break it up into smaller working pieces and then bring them together as groups. Because if I do everything in one single one, I guarantee you, you're going to be like cursing the day you ever opened up After Effects. It is going to drive you absolutely batty, right? So, how much time we got? Not too much. Let me show you the basics of this, and then we'll continue it on. But your first assignment, your assignment this week, is 2 things to get turned in. Okay. Your audio. Well, okay. Because you should have written. How many of you wrote your narration already? 1 person. Ooh. Okay, 2. Now I see hands going up. I have to go ooh for it to happen. So, your narration, which is, like your script. Record the audio and storyboard. Right? So those are the things you want to get so you can start locking it down. Right now we're just going over this is how you're going to make that storyboard come to life. So the narration, once again, we're talking 10 seconds or so of just a couple of sentences. Hi, my name is Ty Carrier. I love this, this, and this. One other quick thing. Boom, you're done. Okay? It's not about like, I was born a small child. And you start, reminiscing of times past. No. It's something small, short, and simple. Right? So it's not about like a huge paragraph. It's just a couple of sentences. And then you're going to animate these to kind of show it. Look at the audition video on how to record it if you have any problems. If you still have problems, just wait until next time but get your storyboard, the ideas. So now that we have that, let me just show you this part real quick. So we're making, the final is where everything is going to go, the final composition. Part 1, we've got part 1 down. And let me do another comp. Gosh, so many comps. This one I'm going to call part 2. And in part 2, just to reiterate, so you guys don't have to follow along with this. I'm recording it, but I want you to at least see me do it. You saw me do it once, but now I want you to just kind of, view it. And I'll post these up. I'll try to have this posted up tonight if you want to jump in. But not like you don't have other stuff to do. But I'll try, at the very least, it'll be posted up tomorrow. So now I have hello, my name, and now I want is Ty Carrier. So I go back in, do the same thing. Is. I duplicate that, Control D. Take is2 and double click. Ty. Duplicate that. Carrier. Okay. I have them broken up into 3 separate pieces because in my mind, they are going to come in at different intervals. Now, you can apply these effects to an entire, 3 words at a time, but you're limiting, it's faster, but it's also limiting how they come in. But it depends on how you plan on transitioning. Okay? So, I'm a hide Gesundheit. Hide Ty Carrier. I have is. And go back to my effects. Let's drop in a few. And I want it. Actually, I'm going to, let me do this. I'm actually going to line them up the way I want them to be. So let me turn those back on. I'm going to take, let me grab all of them. P. And let's say it's there, so deselect is, oops, I want to be at the top, carrier at the bottom, and these I'm actually going to change their justification in paragraphs so that they're all flush to the left. And just kind of paste them right there. And I can also just kind of tweak them out a little bit. Okay. Can also use my arrows to nudge them. Maybe have is a little bit higher, like that. Okay. So now I have where their ending position is going to be. Okay. And now I can start putting in the effects of how I want them to pop up. And then the final thing will be combining them with the other one. So I'm just going to do this one really quick, nothing special, just so I can kind of show you how it works. And let's say, what's this look like? Let's drop this on the is. Oh, yeah, I like that. That's a random fade. Boom, boom. Going from left to right. Toit. So I'm actually going to do that, let's just for the sake of quickness, to all of them. Okay, that'll work. Once again, I'm just trying to show you how this works. I'm also going to go in and offset these. So is should be first. Under animation. Huh? Yeah, I just tweak things in the timeline. So I speed things up by grabbing these like that. And then I'd go in, so is done. Now I go to tie. And then I just want to offset those. So here they are here. So I go, oh, whoop. After is, that's when these guys come in, and I move them over, bam. Is, tie, there we go. Maybe move you. And then I offset carrier. So I'm just doing it quick and dirty just so we can get to the final phase so you guys can at least see me doing it here as class is ending. And now I take it like, oh, okay, tie is spelled out. I wait a few frames, and now I take these guys and move them over to there and tighten that up. So if I hit space, let's see, is, tie, carrier. And I might decide like, it's a little slow, but you know, I would tweak out all this stuff as I see fit. Okay? That means zooming in at times, going over, tightening things up. So that you can actually make things happen a wee bit faster. And then bring these guys way over here. Tighten that up. So let's see what that looks like. That'll work just for what we're doing. Yay! So that works. So now how do I bring all that together? Like this. I go into my final composition. I double click on that and it's clean. There's nothing in there. I drop in part 1 into the timeline. Badoosh. Hello, my name is Typography. Boom. That works pretty well. Right about here is where it stops, right? So what I want to do is have this rotate so it's vertical off to the side so that the other text is on its side, or is actually on the side of this vertical text. So a couple of things need to happen. One, remember this little icon up here, the anchor. I'm going to grab that anchor and move it to where I want the center, where I want this to be able to rotate from. Put it right in the center of this text. So now if I rotate it, it's going to rotate off the M in my. It's like a pivot point from Maya. Okay. Next, go back to my arrow. And so right here, I want to do a few things. So I want to position, scale, and rotation. Okay. So let's say, because right now if I rotate this, what would that look like if I just rotated it? Boom, like that. It's actually not bad, but I want it to shrink a little bit. So I'm going to set a key for the position, the scale, and the rotation. Right there. So it goes boom, and then right here, just a few frames next to it, because I want it to be relatively fast. I'm going to rotate it, hold down the shift while I'm rotating it, and I'm using the rotation tool. And that snaps it so it's perfect 90 degrees. We could see it's negative 90 degrees there. I'm also going to scale it down, like so. and then I'd reposition it if I needed it. So right now, if I just hit space, check it out. Watch this. See? Things are starting to make more sense. Rewind, get that down. Hello, my name, boom, is Typography. Now that I've got that set up, now I bring in part 2. And I drag that in there. This guy, I'm going to have to move over. Bam. See that? And now this one, I could scale upward. So I'll just scale that up and reposition it to where I want it. And now let's see. Watch this. Hello, my name is Ty Carrier. That's why we made these separate pieces, these different compositions. Because it's a whole lot easier for me to just get it looking right, stick it in that group, which is the composition, and then just animate the composition to scale or rotate the entire thing and have it easily work with these other pieces. Does that make sense? So this is why you kind of plan things out and you have your storyboard. I know what my end result's going to be. Right? Now all I have to do is just go in, and now I could do stuff. One last thing, real quick, or 2 quick ones. If I wanted to have those color shapes. So I go back here, bam, bam, whoop. Maybe right here I want there to be a color shape differentiating this from the rest. So right click, new, so I'm in my timeline, right click, new, solid. And it asks me, okay, let's say this is like it's based off the same color I had. Medium, orange, solid. I can name it whatever I want, like orange shape or something like that. And I choose which color I want. Do not go for an oversaturated retina burning color. Once again, we want to highlight our text. We don't want to distract from it. So I hit OK. And then I shrink it down to what I want. Let me see how that works. And I want to pull that shape all the way to the bottom so it's behind everything. But I'm thinking I want it something like either that, or maybe it is taking up the whole side. That's up to you how you want to do it. But it's a way of me highlighting this part. The difference is, like, how do I want this to transition? I don't want it to just always be there, right? So maybe it's just scale. Hit S. And here's where I want it to be at 100%. So I set a key. Right there. Maybe I just scale it down. Oops. Turn off the constrain. Set it to 0. It has no scale. There we go. Check that out. Hello, my name is... See that? Now, I could even take this, put it into its own composition instead of this being the final, and then animate this off going to the next thing. That's up to you. But this is why we break it up into individual pieces, because the other thing is I can actually change them up of how I'd want them to actually work. When you bring in your sound file, you're just going to drop it right into the timeline. and then just go from there. And that's how you sync things up. And then if I had a logo, I would do the same thing. Where do I, oh, I drag it in. But I'd have to import it into there it is. So there's my little Illustrator file. And then I would just drag it right in there. Bam. Position it. And then set it up with however I want it to come in, which for this one it's not text. So I would just have whatever effect I wanted to have it come in. Could be a transform, could be a dissolve, right?
So we look so similar, I can just use your photo, right?
Funny. 9. There we go. Zoop. See? And then same way. The other thing is you'll notice the effects. If I click on that, here's my effects here. I can also edit the effects from the side here. But if I want to see where the specific keyframes are, we could see the master dissolve, and there they are here if I want to speed those up or move them down. Click away, see what the whole thing. Hello, my name is. Make sense? So I'm going to stop this one.